My name is Pottinger, and today I want to talk about the psychological manipulation of algorithms. So, what exactly does that mean? It is the intentional use of techniques to direct and influence user behavior within a system by employing a variety of different techniques. And that might sound a little bit ominous. It's really not. It's just not something that's very apparent within the systems. Obviously, system owners don't want people to know manipulating them. But I hope that throughout this way, I'll be able to go into detail on some of the different techniques used. So why is this done? Obviously, money makes the world go. And the more users we have on our system, the more money we get. But more importantly, the more users we have on our system using the system in the exact way that we intend them to use it, then we can really make it. So the first technique that I want to talk about is one that I find most interesting, purely because of how I feel it affects everyone who uses these systems. Mainly just because of how effective these systems are in how these techniques are. So engagement focuses on pushing users to utilizing these systems whenever possible, getting users to log on whenever they have time, and the aim of retention is to ensure users will continue to make use of the system going forward and to create a routine in both systems. Now, like I mentioned, this is the most common and apparent technique used, and social media platforms are a huge proponent to the use of these techniques. Some examples of engagement include personalization, so allowing users to create their own experience in their system, allow them to post what they want, view what they want, and then push notifications, which are actually a very big have a very big impact on engagement, because if you think that this way, then you have an app that you don't really use too often, but it's still somewhat helpful. If that app were to send you push notifications every day about what's happening in the system, you would be much more likely to log on. And then an example of retention is social and community integration, because if a system has a lot of interaction with other people using the system, you're much more likely to use the system to see what's happening every day and read what's going on. Now, since social media is such a huge proponent of the use of these techniques, I thought it would be interesting to go over some statistics on social media usage. So in the year 2021, roughly 7.88 billion people were recorded in the world, and of that, 56.8% of these people utilize social media. That's roughly 4.5 billion people. And of that, 93% are active or daily users of the systems. Now, if we were to take the top 5 most popular social media platforms and look at the average time spent on each, you can see that Twitter has around 20 minutes, Facebook 33, Instagram 29, YouTube 19, and TikTok with a massive 52 minutes average time spent per day. Now, if we were to add this all up, that gets to about 2.5 hours of social media usage per day on average, just with these 5 different social media platforms. And now if we do a little bit of math, we can get that the average global lifespan is around 73.4 years. And if we were to assume that social media usage starts at the age of 10, which unfortunately is not too scary to think anymore, then people will spend roughly 3.4 million minutes of social media in their life. In years, that is 6 years and 8 months. And a scary statistic is that is 9.59% of your life spent on social media platforms. Now, I'm not showing you these statistics to scare people using social media, but it does just go to show how effective these engagement and retention techniques are. The next technique that I want to talk about is persuasive design principles. So these aim to direct users from certain actions, or what I like to call owner-wanted actions within the system. They can take many forms, such as scarcity. Take, for example, something like take a lot. Take a lot, and you see an item that has 1, 2 left. You are much more likely to purchase that item because you're a bit scared of missing out on the quote-unquote good deal. And then personalization, which I spoke about already, and reward systems, which are used very heavily in banking and in insurance applications. So the company will offer you different reward tiers based on the package that you purchase. And obviously, when you spend more money, you get more rewards, but you spend more money, the company also gets more. A very fascinating technique that is used and quite a scary one is dark patterns. So dark patterns can be characterized as typically interface design choices aimed at intentionally deceiving or manipulating users into performing certain actions. Now, these actions that the users make are typically not the actions that a user would normally make on their own without being influenced by the system itself. And these patterns tend to exploit users' trust and the psychological vulnerabilities for the benefit of the system owners. These patterns are typically legal, but most of the time they fall into a legal gray area, which I will talk about a bit later. But some examples of dark patterns include misdirection, false continuity, when you might think that you're just purchasing a once-off application use or something like that, but it's actually a monthly subscription, weekly, daily. Sneak into basket, which is very scummy, where you add an item to your cart, will throw in an extra one, and then disguise ads. Now, these dark patterns are normally aimed at making users spend or generate money for business unintentionally. Instead of trying to get users to engage more, these are more directed at money. Now, a very interesting resource that I found is the dark pattern for shame. I'll put the link up there for anyone who is curious. It's really interesting. It's a website dedicated to shaming the use of dark patterns and educating users on the practice. Now, they go into some very high-profile cases of dark pattern usage. It's a very big application. However, I thought it would be interesting to choose one from somewhere you wouldn't really expect dark pattern usage. You would normally expect it from the big bag corporations. I chose an example from the London Zoo ticketing site. So if you look here, there are two price points to purchasing tickets with the quantity that you want to buy. And it's a bit hard to see, but at the bottom here, in green, it says add to basket with donation. And obviously, that is placed in the area and it looks similar to on any other website where it would normally say proceed to checkout, continue, next step. And on the bottom left, a follow button underneath the image is add to basket without donation. So typically, users are just going to click on that because they think that's the only option. If they're in a rush, they don't really see it. Again, it's not necessarily illegal, but it is too good. The next technique I want to talk about is emotional manipulation. Now, this refers to the expectation of people's psychological triggers and their emotions. They aim to use the psychological leverage they have over users in order to guide their decision making and drive specific actions. This technique is not exactly common, just purely based on how good of an understanding the developers and system owners need to have of the human psychology in order to back these algorithms. These techniques play on the person's emotions. They can play on fear with fear tactics. They could use rewards and positive reinforcement to bring people to satisfaction. And social validation is another very prominent one used in social media by displaying the likes and follow accounts of users in order to encourage them to interact with one another in certain ways. An interesting research paper that I found discusses the correlation between Twitter and negativity. So the research paper titled A Hybrid Method for Sentiment Analysis of Election-Related Tweets goes into detail about the number of negative tweets compared to positive tweets, and also how Twitter's algorithm encourages negative tweets over positive ones. While the research paper does focus mainly on tweets around election topics, it does go into detail on the generalized Twitter usage. Below, there is a graph, a histogram showing the probability of a tweet being negative. On the left, we can see the metric for number of tweets, and this is the number of tweets on a specific topic. So that is determined based on hashtags and other metadata on the tweet. And at the bottom, they were able to calculate the probability for the negative score. And this is all through sentiment analysis within the Twitter application. And you can see that at around 1,000 tweets on a topic, there will be a 0.6 probability of the tweets in that topic being negative. But as that number goes up to around 4,000 tweets on a specific topic, there's a 90% chance of those tweets being Now, you might be wondering why this doesn't really sound like a good idea. But take, for example, if I were to go posting and I say, peanut butter is nice, I like it. No one's really going to care. No one's going to interact with that. It's just a tame opinion. However, if I go on Twitter and I say peanut butter is vile and disgusting and it is the leading cause to the climate crisis, obviously people are going to interact with that. They're going to fight me on that. They're going to have their own opinions to go against that. And that is why Twitter wants to push more negative tweets to their users. Monetization strategies are aimed at generating revenue directly for business. They aim at pushing users to spend as much money as possible to maximize their profits. And this is done by capitalizing on their behavior and their consumption patterns. Now, while these strategies are directly aimed at making money, the rest of the strategies that I spoke about are kind of used to funnel users towards these strategies. And these examples that I have up here, I'm sure everyone here has heard of before, seen before, like subscription models, targeted advertising, which is incredibly in-depth and very scary. I'm interested in looking at that. Premium models, where you get an app for free and it has a lot of things that you enjoy, but it's just missing one feature that you really want, and you have to pay for it. And you're much more likely to pay for it since you know the quality of the rest of that. And then in-app purchases. Now, like I had mentioned, most of the techniques are not necessarily illegal, but legality and ethics share a very fine line. At the moment, these algorithms are not really developed with this in mind, and in the future, they need to be developed with transparency, consent, and privacy as the main priority. Since they are not illegal, and we can't really enforce any of these, we need to be empowering it. Obviously, these systems play a very large role in our daily lives. We can't necessarily just drop these systems altogether. We do need them for work or anything else. It is thus very important to ensure that we are using the systems in the way that we intend and not the way in which the system intends us to use them. And hopefully by going through some of the techniques used and by listening to me explain them, hopefully everyone's just a little bit better suited to combat these techniques. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it.